What's up guys, and welcome back to WBC Builds, and today I have for you my long awaited 1000 subscriber special. That's right, the train station build is here for your viewing pleasure. So I'm standing in front of Woolhampton Central Station right now, and this is going to be the focus of today's video. So I've just got to say, it's probably taken me about 30 to 40 hours to complete, and I've enjoyed every second of building it. That's a lie, it's been horrible. But you know what guys, it's time for you to watch and see how much work has gone into this and how much I appreciate all of your support. So let's jump into the video. Okay, so I'd like to apologise first of all for not having this video out sooner. As you can probably tell, I've passed 1000 subscribers about a month ago now from the date of filming this, and I have gone through quite a few little side projects on the way to getting this video ready to go, and that was just how it was going to always be. This train station required a lot of planning, and you're going to see that throughout the time lapse of just how much went into this. So it's not just the build itself, but there was weeks worth of sort of understanding train stations a bit better. I do, up until recently, have been using a train every day to get to and from work, so I have a good understanding of what British train stations look like, especially those ones built in this time period. So the station, let's get a little bit of backstory to the station, shall we? So Woolhampton Central Station was built originally in 1838 on the Sutton to Portmore main line. So that's the north-south line. It had 2 platforms and 2 tracks, and then later on, when Westbourne became this really nice, well-to-do town, 2 more tracks and 2 more platforms were added here to work as the Sutton to Westbourne line, and then the Westbourne to Cheddar route as well, which also went along the same line, so it became a 4-platform station. And then in 1888, the Berg Loop Railway Company opened, and they opened a circular loop that started in Berg, came round to Woolhampton, which is the most westerly point, and then back up to Hamwick and back round to Berg. And we'll get onto that one day in our Berg Lore series. Now that adds an extra 2 platforms because it's actually a separate line. You can interchange between the 2 lines. As you can see later on in the video, I build a curve of track which allows that, but the idea is they run in parallel to our mainline tracks as well, which is why I build not just 1 station in this video, but I actually build 2. So what we're going to see first is the main original building, the 1838 building, and then we'll also see later on in the video the second entrance, the more I want to say later, more not industrialized, what's the word I'm trying to think of, more transport orientated station. So it's got a little place, a carport for cars and vehicles to go under, because that was built in the 1880s for this Berg Loop railway section. So I don't know why I did it, because throughout the build I was always having trouble because of the angles and the shapes and the sizes of building it. And I suddenly went, you know what's going to make this even better if I build a second station on the site of the station to make my life harder. Anyway, I digress. So I wanted to build this station from probably day 1 of starting Woolhampton as a world. For me, I've always been interested in Victorian train stations, really early ones, and just the entirety of the rail mania and the fact that railways still exist today on the same alignments they did nearly 200 years ago. That blows my mind that we're still using something very muchly built in the past. And the building in question for Woolhampton Central Station was never intended to be a train station. I took the plans and took a drawing from what would have been the Corn Market or the Corn Exchange in Winchester. The building was finally built, but not to this design. So I'm going to put that up on screen when we get to the actual building of itself in a second. And I love doing that, bringing things that do not exist into the game as an homage to what could have been. And I wanted to do this as this special for my 1k sort of subscribers, because for 750 we did the Crescent build. Now that was by far probably the hardest build I've ever done until this one. Now this train station was hard because of just the angles everything was built at. The Crescent was built in a nice curve, you know, it was one gradient changing constantly. This is on several different types of curves. You'll see the platforms are bent and look like bananas in between it all. And to do that, I used a command called I set the wand in World Edit to convex, and used a curve command to get some curves actually intertwined and work together. Now I had a lot of help for sort of the setting up from people on my server, so thank you Dweebs, thank you Minecraft Repro, thank you Jamie as well for your statue earlier on in the video, and everyone else sort of popped by to give me some support and just say, wow, this is amazing. So there was a lot of visitors actually throughout the entirety of this build, and it makes it nice to build on a server and have people come over and say hello and say, oh, this is nice, this is interesting. Anyway, we're digressing again, but yeah, so this station is just huge. 6 platforms, it's bigger than most English stations. I based it slightly on Basingstoke Station in the terms of the layout, but I diverged a long way from that when I eventually went, these platforms are massive. They're like, I think the biggest one in the centre is maybe 19 blocks wide or 12 blocks wide. I can't actually remember. And the other one, the smallest one, the platform 2 and 3, is only 7 or 8 blocks wide. And that's down to the history and also the fact that I didn't put a curve in there properly. My fault. So I wanted to integrate the docks into this railway a little bit, but that never really happened, mainly due to the level difference between where the station was up on the hill and where the docks are down by the canal. And it's annoying because I think in most towns the railways were there as a way of supplying goods and services and industry to towns, but it doesn't really matter for us because this is a main passenger station, a main hub for all sorts of lines coming around Berg and this part of Wolverhampton. So we're moving on now to getting a little bit of curve track done. So this is the curve that comes in from the crescent direction. So if you cast your minds back to my 750 subscriber special video, like I said earlier, the crescent, we built a train station in that. That was Limemore Park Station. So this curve track goes off around there, past the clock tower, and on to the station over there. Now in real life, you do get stations that close together. I am thinking of a few between Clapham Junction and Waterloo on the main southwestern main line, and the idea is that you don't really use that as a commute between there and there, but you get on and you use the long distance section. Okay, and what I'm building now is a small little signal box. I posted this on Instagram and it got really quite well received, and it was interesting because it's just one of those really random little builds. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the actual train station building itself. So the building itself is, like I said, based on this image here. So this was a design done by a disgraced architect who designed something that collapsed in London. I can't remember what I read that he designed, but so the building was actually never built in Winchester. A separate building was built instead, which still stands now. I think it's their library. And I went, you know what, this looks really nice. I want to use it. It's got that proper late Georgian, early Victorian look to it, neoclassical columns, but it's also got a weird grandeur about it that goes, this is a train station building, not a corn market or whatever it was originally. So it's got these lovely columns at the front. So I've gone for the 2 columns on the end to be a little bit thicker and the ones in the middle to be sort of skinny because those are the ones you pass through. Now the colour scheme I've gone for here is completely different to anything I usually go for. I've gone for all the stripped woods and some sandstone. So I've used stripped birch as the main building block for this entire station, and that is because it imitates a sort of a sandier sandstone. Now Minecraft doesn't really have anything other than sandstone to use, and the stripped birch really does work in its favour, because if you look at places like Bath and quite a few other little towns in the West Country and up north in England, you get to see this sort of darker, sandier colour that isn't as white and as bright and as vibrant as sandstone. Now I could have gone for quartz and I could have gone for brick, but we will do that later on in our other train stations throughout Berg. But I thought for this building it needs to be of a nice grand colour. So as you saw in the picture before as well, it has 2 wings. So the wing this side is all about offices, and it's also where people get picked up and dropped off by cabs and by sort of carriages and cars at this point as well, because we are in the year 1912, so there are cars about. And this other wing on the right hand side is all about a bar and a restaurant. So yes, there is another pub now featuring in Wolverhampton. Of course, you wouldn't expect me to build a train station, or actually any building in Wolverhampton, without making a pub part of it. So let me just sort of say as well, the second entrance is also going to have a pub in it, but you know, never mind that. So what I'm doing is laying out the foundations of the interiors inside. We will come back later on and do an actual sort of showcase of this build, because there is so much to see. You can't really get the full scale of it even in this time lapse. So me and Jamie are going to go for a little wander around here eventually. So yeah, I actually really need to decorate the insides. So what we're doing now is we're building the back of the station and getting it ready to accept the canopies that are going to cover the platforms. So you can see here I'm doing the roof, and inside the train station the entirety of both levels of windows are actually exposed at the ground level. So there's no floor at the first floor level, and what I've done in there is I've put a really nice sort of plastered roof with a big light fixture hanging down. You unfortunately can't see it in this video, but when we do the showcase you'll be able to see how grand and how sort of, I don't know, how lovely it looks when you walk in there. I showed some people it and they were like, this looks more like a bank than a train station, and I was like, it has got that feel about it. But yes, we're just sticking the roofs on here, gone for stone bricks and diorite slabs as a way of just breaking up that grey. I do that quite a bit around Wolverhampton. That's become quite a common style in Wolverhampton. The same with like the anvils as chimney pots. So you can see there it's like a little glass roof over an area of the station, and in there is where you travel down the little corridor which takes you under each one of these platforms, and you can see there's little steps up. Okay, so we're now on to actually building the platforms. So I wanted to do an entire glass roof across the station, but I went, do you know what, that's going to take so much planning, so much engineering, because it's at such an angle. Why not just put canopies across it all like most British stations have? So I've taken my inspiration again from Basingstoke station here. I stand there a lot and look at things, and I've used an interesting way. So I've put these like pylons or these columns up, and I really actually think they give quite a nice impression of how you expect it to see at a train station. So I've placed them at intervals of I think 15 blocks. I've done that across the entirety of all 6 platforms, and the way it works is the spacings look about right, and it gives you quite a nice distance between each of the pylons that you can put benches and all of that on the platforms itself. Now for these middle platforms, they're a bit wider, some of them, so I had to, instead of just doing one pylon up, I had to do a double-breasted one, and because each platform's a different shape as well, the actual canopies change in their shape and their angles. Now I think that looks really good, and from the air you really get a sense of like, wow, this is a big structure. Before, with just the flat platforms, you couldn't really get a scale sort of about it, but now it's got these canopies on it, you start to go, oh god, that's an entire building now, that's how big it is. So I'm just adding a small little waiting room and cafe here on platform number 3 and 4, and that just again is very common of these island platforms. I think I took inspiration from this from Basingstoke again, where they have this small little skinny cafe slash waiting room, and this is the platform that is definitely the widest. It's 12 blocks wide and maybe even 13 at some points, which is why you see the columns here for the canopies are spaced 2 abreast, but also there's some single ones as well. So I think this was actually my favourite part of the entire building, just putting these canopies on, because once you look back at them, like I'm saying, you realise, wow, this actually feels like a train station now, not just a big open plain of concrete. So underneath them all, I've added lanterns hanging off the canopies and some benches and flowers around the place, just to give it that nice feel. So we're moving on here now to platform 6, and with this we're doing the same style as we did before for the other platforms. Now once we're done with the canopies, we're moving on to the second entrance. So like I said earlier on, this entrance has been designed with cars and vehicles in mind. So there's a big carport underneath it. I based it on York Station actually, and I probably should have used it as its own individual station one day, but for now we have it here as part of the Wolverhampton Central complex. So I'm placing it down with wool again, as I normally do for my builds, just to get an idea of its size. It's got this arcade at the front of columns. There's 9 columns, and because of the angle of the platform, I felt I had to sort of model the building around the angle. I did it a little bit too much at first, so I moved it back eventually so it wasn't so jagged. But this arcade at the front is exactly as it was on the York one that I took it from. And on either sides, on either wings, again we have this area here, which is actually the main vestibule, the main area you congregate into to go to the platforms and coming up the stairs as well. So instead of the stairs coming out on the platform on this one, the stairs go under the tunnel and up into this room here, which is a mimic of the room on the main building. So the idea is the architects came through in the 1880s and went, okay, we've been building these brick stations all along the track from Whiteberg down to Woolhampton, but because Woolhampton Central is built out of this sandstone, a brick building on this side would have looked a bit pants. So they went, okay, let's build it in the same style, but obviously with a bit more of a later Victorian understanding of architecture. So we've got these more neoclassical arches, and I don't really know, but it definitely feels a bit more Victorian than it does Georgian, which is what the front building definitely feels like. So I tried to put a few little flags in here and a few little details for the actual rail company, but I thought, you know what, no, it'll look good just with some nice detailing on here instead. So you've got the arcade there forming the main carport. Now the roof on top of the carport is that of several bits of open glass, and I really like that because it just works so well. You get some nice light through it and shaders, and it makes more sense. It is exactly as it was on the original building as well, so I didn't change too much up on that. The rest of the building is interesting. So like I said, this is the main ticket area, but then on the right hand side is another pub. So that's the hotel, that's the Railway Inn. Oh, actually, no, it can't be the Railway Inn because we already have a Railway Inn by the docks. I'll leave that for you guys to come up with a name for that hotel / pub there on the corner, and it can't be the Railway Inn. So here we are putting in the glass roof, and the carport is now complete. So this was, I don't know why I decided to build an entire bigger building on this side, but like I said, it works quite well. And it just ties the whole area together. So all we got left to do really is to landscape the entire complex and build a goods yard. So I wasn't going to integrate any freight or any industry into this building. Like I said, the docks didn't really work out. But towards the end of construction of the entire place, I went, you know what, I need to put a goods shed or a goods yard in. So that's what I did. So now for the road around the second side of the station, I've gone for a bit more of a complex junction rather than just roads that have been paved, that have been walked upon for the last 1,000 years. These have been planned to be here by the railway companies. So the road travels up from the main road that travels under the bridge at the end of the station. We'll get to that at the end of the video. And the other section of this road carries back across east and goes over the canal. So that canal isn't built yet, but it will be a canal tunnel at this point because of the hill and how much it actually is a lot higher up than where the canal basin is. So we'll get round to building that in a later part of our Let's Build Woolhampton. So a side note while we're here, you may see all these construction sites lying around, and these are here mainly because I wanted to set some areas up so they'd be like, okay, that's what we're building next. We're going to do that for our next Let's Build Woolhampton episode. I thought that was quite a cool, nice little feature that I'd done. I might do it later on as well, further on down the line, just so we get an idea of what's going to be the next sort of sections we built up on. Anyway, this area is a bit more tricky than normal because of the level difference, and the whole reason that I didn't build another sort of canal dock here is because I didn't want like another sort of industry next to here. I want to put some big townhouses down by the train station. So we're going to get around to that in probably maybe our last episode of our Let's Build Woolhampton series. We'll see where we get to on that. Now, the goods shed, I wanted to do this as sort of based on a real life one, so I chose one from Brockenhurst. So the one in Brockenhurst is now a restaurant, and I googled London and South Western Railway's goods sheds, and I didn't expect any to pop up, but the first one that popped up was the Brockenhurst one. And I was like, okay, I actually know where that is. I've been there, I've been to the restaurant in there, and I went, okay, let's build this one. So I built this one. I built it at a 22.5 degree angle because I'm a masochist, you know me. So yeah, I think it worked really well because of the way it's stuck on the end of the train tracks. And yeah, so all we got left to do now after this is the bridge. So I'm going to leave you guys to watch the rest of the time lapse, and then at the end of this video there is a nice cinematic. So all I can say really is just a big thank you for helping me reach my first proper milestone at 1,000 subscribers. We're a long way from minutes watched to be actually become monetized, but to me that doesn't matter because I just enjoy putting videos up and showing you guys how fun Victorian and Georgian styles can be to build in. This train station has always been something I've wanted to build. Like, the idea of actually having a train station that I've designed myself, for me that is just like one of my main goals. So the fact that I've done it and you can all now experience it and enjoy it as my gift to you for helping me reach that goal, it makes me so happy. Like, you can't see the smile on my face right now, but it's a big one. So yeah, I've enjoyed building this, and even though at the start of the video I went it's horrible, but that's because it's painful, because it's something I've wanted to do. That makes sense, and once it's done, it's done. It's gone. It's no longer what I want to do. So I've got loads more projects in mind, and I hope you all stick around to see where I take this channel. So anyway guys, thank you all for watching, thank you for being there, thank you for supporting me, and we'll see you next time for another video. Enjoy the rest of the time lapse, enjoy the cinematic, and I'll see you soon.